The screen is black. The sound of distant shouting and sirens grows louder. Suddenly, the sharp crack of automatic gunfire erupts, followed by the deep, guttural crump of an explosion. This is not a drill. This is not a warning. This is the first minute of what could become the next great war in the Middle East. Right now, as we speak, the sovereign territory of the United States of America is under a full-scale, coordinated military assault, not in some distant battlefield, but in the heart of Baghdad. The U.S. Embassy, the largest and most fortified diplomatic mission on the planet, is a fortress under siege, and inside, a small detachment of United States Marines are in a desperate battle for their lives, holding the line against hundreds of heavily armed fighters, directed, supplied, and unleashed by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is not just an attack on a building. It is a direct, undeniable challenge to American power. It is Tehran's bloody signature on a declaration of shadow war. The next few hours will not only determine the fate of the diplomats and soldiers trapped inside that compound, they will determine the course of the 21st century. This is a minute-by-minute breakdown of the battle for Baghdad. This is global crisis radar. The anatomy of a flashpoint rarely begins with the first shot fired. It begins in the hours and days before, with whispers and shadows. For 72 hours, U.S. intelligence assets in the region, from signals intelligence to human sources on the ground, reported a disturbing spike in chatter among Iran-backed militia groups in Iraq. Kataib Hezbollah, a Sa'ib Ahl al-Haq, names synonymous with sophisticated, Iranian-supplied weaponry and unwavering loyalty to the Quds force, were mobilizing. CENTCOM raised its threat level for assets in Iraq to HPCON Charlie, but on the ground, the situation was deceptively calm. It was the calm of a predator coiled to strike. The assault began not with a bang, but with a crowd. 1300 Baghdad time. What appeared to be a spontaneous protest materializes outside the main gates of the sprawling U.S. Embassy compound, located deep within the fortified green zone. The crowd numbers in the hundreds, waving militia flags and chanting anti-American slogans. For the Marine Security Guard Detachment, or MSGs, this is a familiar playbook. They observe from the rooftops of the Chancery and fortified watchtowers, their rules of engagement clear. Do not escalate. They deploy non-lethal deterrents. Tear gas canisters are fired, arcing over the perimeter walls and dispersing plumes of white smoke into the angry mob. But this time, something is different. 1345 Baghdad time. The crowd does not disperse. Instead, it swells. Trucks arrive, not with more protesters, but with men in tactical gear, their faces covered. They begin distributing weapons, hidden in plain sight. AK-47s, RPG-7 launchers, and military-grade explosives. The protest was a Trojan horse. The Marine commander inside the embassy, a battle-hardened captain, makes a critical call to the Joint Operations Command in Baghdad. This is no longer a protest. We are facing an imminent, organized attack. 1402 Baghdad time. The first explosion. It is not at the main gate. The attackers are smarter than that. They target a section of the western perimeter wall, a massive, reinforced concrete barrier designed to stop a truck bomb. They use a shaped charge, a sophisticated explosive device designed to focus the blast. The result is a catastrophic breach. A gaping hole, 10 meters wide, is torn in the first line of America's defense in Iraq. The siege has begun. The roar of the blast is the signal. Through the dust and debris, the first wave of fighters storms into the compound. They are not a disorganized mob. They move with military precision, splitting into fire teams, laying down suppressing fire on the Marine watchtowers as their comrades pour through the gap. Their objective is clear: create chaos, overwhelm the initial defenses, and push deep into the 104-acre compound. Inside the embassy's Tactical Operations Center, or TOC, the situation is exploding in real time. Alarms are blaring. The Marine Detachment Commander is coordinating the defense, his voice calm but firm over the radio. All stations, this is Dagger Actual. We have a breach on the western perimeter. Fall back to Rally Point Bravo. Contain the breach. I repeat, contain the breach. The MSGs are outnumbered, perhaps 50-1. But they have advantages. They are on their home turf, a kill zone of their own design. They know every angle, every choke point, every fatal funnel. As the first attackers sprint across the open ground inside the compound, they run into a wall of disciplined, accurate fire from the Marines, who have taken up pre-planned defensive positions. The staccato bark of M4 rifles and the heavier thud of the M240 Bravo machine gun echo across the compound, cutting down the initial assault. 1417 Baghdad time. The attackers adapt. They are not amateurs. They are battle-hardened fighters, many veterans of the Syrian civil war. They stop charging into the open and begin using the compound's own structures for cover service buildings, vehicles, even decorative landscaping. The distinct, terrifying whoosh of a rocket-propelled grenade is heard, followed by an explosion against the side of a secondary administrative building. The battle has now devolved into a brutal, close-quarters fight. The immediate priority for the Marines is the Chancery, the main embassy building where sensitive information is stored, and where civilian staff have taken shelter in a secure subterranean bunker. This is the citadel. It cannot fall. The Marines form a shrinking perimeter around it, a thin blue line of courage and firepower. Simultaneously, a second crisis is unfolding. Several diplomatic staff and contractors are trapped in a residential building on the far side of the compound, cut off by the attackers. Advance. A small fire team of 4 Marines is dispatched on what is essentially a suicide mission, to fight their way across hundreds of meters of hostile ground to reach and extract those personnel. 1435 Baghdad time. The sky begins to answer. The first sign of help arrives not on the ground but from above. The unmistakable, menacing buzz of a flight of AH-64 Apache attack helicopters. They were scrambled from a nearby U.S. base, a quick reaction force in the air. Their cameras and sensors feed a god's-eye view of the battlefield back to the commanders in the TOC and at CENTCOM. The rules of engagement are incredibly sensitive. This is a diplomatic compound in the capital of a host nation. The Apaches cannot simply level the area. They must conduct precision strikes, authorized by the ground commander, targeting only confirmed hostile fighters who pose a direct threat to American lives. The first Hellfire missile is fired. It streaks down and obliterates a pickup truck with a heavy machine gun mounted on the back that was providing suppressing fire for the attackers. The arrival of air support is a game-changer, but it doesn't end the fight. The IRGC proxies are prepared for this. They disperse, melting into the dense network of buildings and foliage within the compound, making them harder targets. They know they have a limited window before a larger U.S. ground force can arrive. Their attacks become more frantic, more desperate. They launch a volley of RPGs and mortars toward the Chancery building itself. 1500 Baghdad time. An hour into the assault. The situation is at a knife's edge. The small Marine detachment is holding, but they are running low on ammunition and are taking casualties. The attackers are probing for any weakness in the defense around the Chancery, a relentless tide of violence crashing against a wall of Marine resolve. The strategic implications of this moment are immense. This is not a random militia attack. The level of coordination, the equipment, the tactics, it all points directly to the IRGC's Quads Force. This assault is a calculated message from Tehran. It is a demonstration of their reach, their ability to strike at the very heart of American presence in the region. They are testing the new administration in Washington. Will they respond with overwhelming force and risk all-out war, or will they show restraint, which Tehran would interpret as weakness? Every decision being made in the White House Situation Room right now is fraught with world-altering consequences. 1522 Baghdad time. Back in the compound, the rescue team of 4 Marines reaches the residential building. Under covering fire from their comrades and the watchful eyes of the Apaches overhead, they breach the door and begin evacuating the terrified civilian staff, leading them in a frantic sprint back towards the relative safety of the Chancery. This small victory is a crucial morale boost, but the overall battle rages on. The attackers initiate their next phase. They try to set fires, launching incendiary devices to create smoke and confusion, hoping to force the defenders out of their positions. Thick, black smoke begins to billow from several buildings, obscuring the view of both the Marines on the ground and the gunships in the air. The Marine commander makes another critical decision. He requests a show of force from the air. A B-1 Lancer bomber flying at high altitude was diverted to Baghdad. It doesn't drop any bombs. Instead, it dives low over the embassy, its engines roaring at full afterburner. The sound is deafening, a physical shockwave that rips through the air. It is a psychological weapon, a thunderous announcement of the overwhelming power that can be brought to bear. For a moment, the attack falters. The sheer shock and awe of the flyover gives the defenders a precious breather. This is the turning point. On the horizon, the sound of more helicopters grows louder. Not Apaches this time, but Blackhawks and Chinooks. The cavalry has arrived. A specialized counterterrorism unit, deployed from a nearby base, is preparing to fast rope into the compound and reinforce the beleaguered Marines. 1550 Baghdad time. The IRGC-backed fighters see the helicopters. They know the window has closed. Their mission was not to capture and hold the embassy. That would be suicide. Their mission was to breach it, to kill Americans, to humiliate the United States on the world stage, and to escape. The order to withdraw is given. They begin a fighting retreat, firing back as they pull towards the breach in the wall, melting back into the labyrinthine streets of Baghdad. 1630 Baghdad time. The compound is secure, but it is a scene of devastation. Fires are still burning. The smell of cordite and smoke hangs heavy in the air. The newly arrived reinforcements spread out, clearing buildings, while medics tend to the wounded. The cost is high. Initial reports, still unconfirmed, speak of several Marines wounded, 2 critically. At least 1 diplomatic security agent has been killed. Attacker casualties are estimated to be in the dozens. The battle for the embassy is over. The battle for what comes next is just beginning. In Washington, the president is meeting with the National Security Council. The options on the table are all grim. A retaliatory airstrike against IRGC targets in Iraq? Or even inside Iran? Such a move would almost certainly trigger a wider war, potentially collapsing the global economy and drawing in other world powers. In Tehran, state media is already spinning the narrative. They call it a popular uprising against the American occupation. They deny any official involvement, even as they praise the martyrs who fell in the attack. The Iraqi government, caught in the middle, issues a weak condemnation, pleading for all sides to de-escalate, its own sovereignty shattered. What we have witnessed today is the new face of warfare. It is a war fought not by armies in uniform, but by proxies and cutouts, designed to provide plausible deniability. It is a war where a diplomatic compound becomes the front line. The assault on the Baghdad embassy was a deliberate, calculated move on the global chessboard by Iran. They have bloodied America's nose and dared it to respond, believing Washington is too war-weary and divided to begin another major conflict in the Middle East. Are they right? That is the billion-dollar question. The coming days will be among the most dangerous of this century. The Pentagon is moving assets into the region. An aircraft carrier strike group is steaming towards the Persian Gulf. B-52 bombers are being redeployed to forward bases. The pieces are being positioned for a conflict that could spiral out of control with terrifying speed. The line was held today by a handful of brave Marines. But the breach has been made, not just in a concrete wall, but in the fragile peace of a region permanently on the brink. The next shot fired may not be in Baghdad, but in the Strait of Hormuz, in Syria, or even on the Iranian mainland. The crisis is not over. It has just begun. We will be tracking every development, every statement, and every military maneuver as this situation evolves. The world is watching, holding its breath. For the most crucial, up-to-the-minute analysis of this escalating conflict, subscribe to Global Crisis Radar and activate all notifications. You cannot afford to look away now. Stay safe and stay informed.